He knew that on his right in the darkness he would presently begin to hear the soft whisper of water falling in the grotto. And so it happened, he heard it. It was getting cooler. Then he slowed his pace and called softly, "Niza." But instead of Niza, a stocky male figure, detaching itself from a thick olive trunk, leapt out on the road, and something gleamed in its hand and at once went out. With a weak cry, Judas rushed back, but a second man barred his way. The first man, in front of him, asked Judas, "How much did you just get? Speak, if you want to save your life." Hope flared up in Judas's heart, and he cried out desperately, 30 tetradrachmas. 30 tetradrachmas. I have it all with me. Here's the money. Take it, but grant me my life. The man in front instantly snatched the purse from Judas's hands. And at the same instant a knife flew up behind Judas's back and struck the lover under the shoulder blade. Judas was flung forward and thrust out his hands with clawed fingers into the air. The front man caught Judas on his knife and buried it up to the hilt in Judas's heart. Niza, Judas said, not in his own high and clear young voice, but in a low and reproachful one, and uttered not another sound. His body struck the earth so hard that it hummed. Then a third figure appeared on the road. This third one wore a cloak with a hood. "Don't linger," he ordered. The killers quickly wrapped the purse together with a note handed to them by the third man in a piece of hide and crisscrossed it with twine. The second put the bundle into his bosom, and then the two killers plunged off the roadsides and the darkness between the olive trees ate them. The third squatted down by the murdered man and looked at his face. In the darkness it appeared white as chalk to the gazing man and somehow spiritually beautiful. A few seconds later there was not a living man on the road. The lifeless body lay with outstretched arms. The left foot was in a spot of moonlight, so that each strap of the sandal could be seen distinctly. The whole Garden of Gethsemane was just then pealing with the song of nightingales. Where the two who had stabbed Judas went, no one knows, but the route of the third man in the hood is known. Leaving the road, he headed into the thick of the olive trees, making his way south. He climbed over the garden fence far from the main gate, in the southern corner, where the upper stones of the masonry had fallen out. Soon he was on the bank of the Kidron. Then he entered the water and for some time made his way in it, until he saw ahead the silhouettes of two horses and a man beside them. The horses were also standing in the stream. The water flowed, washing their hoofs. The horse handler mounted one of the horses, the man in the hood jumped onto the other, and the two slowly walked in the stream, and one could hear the pebbles crunching under the horse's hoofs. Then the riders left the water, came out on the Yerushalayim bank, and rode slowly under the city wall. Here the horse handler separated himself, galloped ahead, and disappeared from view, while the man in the hood stopped his horse, dismounted on the deserted road, removed his cloak, turned it inside out, took from under the cloak a flat helmet without plumes and put it on. Now it was a man in a military chlamys with a short sword at his hip who jumped onto the horse. He touched the reins and the fiery cavalry horse set off at a trot, jolting its rider. It was not a long way, the rider was approaching the southern gate of Yerushalayim. Under the arch of the gateway the restless flame of torches danced and leapt. The soldiers on guard from the 2nd century of the Lightning Legion sat on stone benches playing dice. Seeing a military man ride in, the soldiers jumped up, the man waved his hand to them and rode on into the city. The city was flooded with festive lights. The flames of lamps played in all the windows, and from everywhere, merging into one dissonant chorus, came hymns of praise. Occasionally glancing into windows that looked onto the street, the rider could see people at tables set with roast kid and cups of wine amidst dishes of bitter herbs. Whistling some quiet song, the rider made his way at an unhurried trot through the deserted streets of the lower city, heading for the Antonia Tower, glancing occasionally at the 5 branched candlesticks, such as the world had never seen, blazing above the temple, or at the moon that hung still higher than the 5 branched candlesticks. The palace of Herod the Great took no part in the solemnities of the Passover night. In the auxiliary quarters of the palace, facing to the south, where the officers of the Roman cohort and the legate of the legion were stationed, lights burned and there was a feeling of some movement and life. But the front part, the formal part, which housed the sole and involuntary occupant of the palace, the procurator, all of it, with its columns and golden statues, was as if blind under the brightest moon. Here, inside the palace, darkness and silence reigned. And the procurator, as he had told Aphranius, would not go inside. He ordered his bed made up on the balcony, there where he had dined and where he had conducted the interrogation in the morning. The procurator lay on the made-up couch, but sleep would not come to him. The bare moon hung high in the clear sky, and the procurator did not take his eyes off it for several hours.